Before I start talking about Eurofruits and my journey, I want to only tell you that I'm sitting next to Jim Prever, who is an internationally acclaimed speaker, and I am not. So if at all I make a lot of mistakes or I fumble during my speak, please cheer me for that, okay? So don't make me nervous, I'm there with you. And my whole idea is here to share some of the real experiences that I went through in my 25 years of journey when we started Eurofruits. And thank you very much, Jim, for inviting me here and giving me this opportunity to express myself and share my journey of 25 years.
Oh, Lori, I think we have some technical challenges.
Should have come a little
No,
forward
he-
here. Is it?
I think he...
Even the presentation is scared of me. Look at it. Okay.
Okay. We're good.
Okay.
Yep.
Jim wanted to tell me about the lessons that I learned in Eurofruit in the last 25 years. And it was an interesting task for me to sit down and pinpoint what are the lessons that we learned. I mean, the lessons can be big list of lessons. But what I'm going to do is just share a few important and practical lessons that I learned in this fresh produce business. As you see, always think long term. And I mean, okay, everybody thinks long term, but implementing this is very difficult. And I've experienced that people in term turns to be short term, but we at Eurofruits are always thinking long term. And I think this is why I put this on the first of my slide projection. We have to always really look and think long term.
How does that translate, Nitin? What kind of things, what kind of decisions might you have made over the last 25 years that you would have not made had you not been thinking long term?
Okay, my first reaction here, since I'm sitting even with my partners here, when we decided to work with one set of importers, say in Holland, when you have a multiple choice, there are many different importers, and every importer would like to make a tempting offer to you and make it look very attractive. And end of the day, we decided that we need somebody whom we can really trust. And for that, I think our vision had to be long term. So it was not a decision based on one or two difficult seasons. Everybody has a difficult time. So at that difficult time is the time you need to take a decision whether you want to continue or look at somebody else. And I think that was the time we took a long-term decision, and working with the same set of suppliers. I mean, we can take pride that we have a lot of suppliers who have been supplying us for the last 18, 20, 22 years. So I think that is the long-term relationship that we talk about.
Now, this is sort of a mirror of the entire produce business, which, when my grandfather began doing his business, it was really very heavily transactional. In fact, a lot of produce was sold in America still in auctions, as there's still some here, but it was all just a matter of price on that day, in that moment.
Exactly.
Whereas people have moved to the idea that no, we have different requirements now. We need people who will be invested in our business for a long period of time. Because after all, we're now concerned about things that you can't really judge, right, by looking at the fruit. You can't judge how the labor was treated or how the food safety system was functioning. So you can't actually do business with just someone who's a little cheaper that day because you don't even know what you're going to be buying. So, all right.
If I come back to my next point, I would ever say that this is a lesson that we have learned. Never ever burn the bridges. Even if there are cases or instances when you don't feel comfortable working with somebody or doing business with somebody, I don't want to burn the relationship ever. Maybe you don't cross the bridge, but you never know when you may need to cross the bridge. So always keep the relationship alive. That's extremely important at Eurofruits. In short, this is what it is. The fresh produce business is all about relationship. It's all about people. It's not a product. It's not a manufactured product like a car or a mobile phone. It's a perishable product. Every season can be very different, and every container, every pallet can be different. So I think you need somebody, be it your importer, be it your supermarket client, be it your retailer, be it your producer, that we need to trust. This fresh produce business, I think the paramount importance is all about trust. So trust-based relationship goes a very long way in the success story.
How do you know who to trust, though? How do you make that decision?
I think you need a little bit of luck, a little bit of wisdom, and a little bit of your judgment. I think it's a combination of many factors. I mean, nobody has the crystal ball that this is the guy or this is the company that you need to trust. Eventually, you have to work with somebody and you have to trust somebody. And it works. In the long term, it works.
Have you had experiences where you've had to make changes because you thought you could trust someone, but it didn't turn out right?
Yes, I can say that the initial stages when I was very new to this business, predominantly we were exporting to United Kingdom. And the first 2-3 years we were supplying only to UK. And that is the time a lot of Dutch importers were also looking at the opportunity of doing business with India. And of course, that time when we were very new, I didn't even know where is Rotterdam. When I went to Holland first, I thought Amsterdam was everything. And I had never had a clue where is Rotterdam. So I came with very less expectations. There was no Google map and no internet, no email, only on base of some phone numbers. I used to go and talk to the consulate. And every company that you go to, they present themselves as they are the best in the world. And then it's very difficult to make a judgment whom to work with. So I think in the initial years, we did work with 4 or 5 different Dutch companies. With due respects to all these companies, they are all very good companies. But end of the day, we had some difficult experience with few of them. And then we had to take a decision of working with somebody. And that is where our long-term relationship came into implementation. This is something which I want to share it little elaborately, learn, earn and return. I started business at the age of 18 years. My father runs a oil company and an oil transportation company. And when I was 19, 20, very young age, I got into business. And he told me one thing, that when you are at the age of 20 to 35, first 15 years of your business, you learn. You make mistakes. You are allowed to make a lot of mistakes, but you learn from your mistakes. Don't repeat your mistakes. From the age of 35 to 50, that is the prime age to be in business, to earn money. You have to make a good, decent earning for your company, for your employees, and for everything. You need to earn. When you're 50 plus, you have to return back to the society. There are very few people who would do this, because whoever earns, they want to keep it to themselves for their luxuries. But my dad said the moment you turn 50 and you have established yourself, you must do some real social cause for the society. And when I was at the age of 46, 45, 46, that is the time we took the first real initiative of giving back to the society. About 10 years back, we started an English primary medium school in a very rural part of India, in a place called Sangli, where our great pack house is. Because in the vicinity of almost 50 to 70 kilometers, there was no education, there was no school. There was some government-run school and no kids were going to the school. And I was finding it extremely difficult for the next generation, for the farmers and the employees who were working for us, that the children were not even going to the school. And I was a bit hurt about that. And we said, okay, let's start an education program. So we started a school, a primary school, English medium school. And initially there were no kids interested in coming to the school. Even if it was a free education, it was an English medium school. And we were almost requesting the parents to send their kids to the school. Nobody wanted to come there. So after about 6 months, what we did is we converted the school premises into a park, into a garden, where we had seesaws and slides and merry-go-rounds and all the playing equipments. And every evening, the kids from the nearby village used to come and play there. We allowed everybody to come. One fine day, we closed the gate. We said, no kids are allowed unless until you study in the school. So if you want to play, you need to go to the school. And I think that really worked. And in this particular project, I must thank my wife and my 2 wonderful daughters. because they also told me that, Papa, these children need to go to school. They look so brilliant, they look so innocent, they look so nice, but they miss education. And that is how we started this school. And I'm very glad that a lot of our European importers, they have also visited the school. And I must also take pride that my partners, Time of Fruit, also contribute on an annual basis for this school project. And this is exactly what makes it so successful. Today we have 250 students, and the first batch of students who are in class 10, they speak perfect English. So I think this was the best thing that we could give back to the society.
Fascinating. Do you find that these type of giving back to society is also well received by the buying end of the trade, that it matters to them whether you're doing these types of things?
Yes, it does matter, because there was a time when the European importers or the retailers were only looking at the product. Now I think none of the meetings that we have with our buyers, we talk about the grapes or the packaging or the product. Okay, pricing is a part of it, but today they are more interested to know what are the social initiatives that we are doing, what impact are we going to bring it on the society, the sustainable issues. I think this definitely has a very important impact on our clients, because after all, they are also answerable to a lot of NGOs. They question that you buy from India. Unfortunately, India does not command that kind of respect in the society, because people watch National Geographic or Discovery Channel, and these channels like to show about poverty in India, child labor in India, child prostitution in India. Because as Sumit was also telling this morning, that we have two sides of India. We have poverty, we have problems in India, but on the other hand, on a macro level, we have very, very good progress in India. None of these TV channels would show you about the progress that India is making. So that is the time when the European importers, they come to India and they look at the facilities, they look at the issues that we handle, the sustainability initiatives that we take. They go back very, very pleased. I think this is an extremely important, also helps you in your marketing kind of.
Okay.
Okay, we normally hear this very often in companies, that we have a training program. I'm completely against the word using training program. I always feel that you train animals, you educate human beings. So training is something which I feel is not right thing for the employees, for the team, because you take an example of a dog, you throw a ball and you tell your dog, come on, Tommy, go and fetch that ball. He does it because you're training him to go and catch the ball, but he doesn't understand why is he going to pick up that ball, because you're not educating him. That is the difference between your human beings or your employees, that we feel that we need to educate them. We need to educate them that the grapes that we are shipping is a very important thing, because a consumer in Finland or Sweden or Norway or Holland or UK, they should be feeling very safe when they eat these grapes. So that is what we educate our farmers, we educate our employees. That's an extremely important thing, and that's why I distinguish between training and education. I also give another example about education. As a mother, there are a lot of mothers sitting here with the small kids. When the kid is say about typically 3 or 4 years old, you tie to how to tie a shoelace or put a tie. So you don't train them, okay, you take this kind of do this, you educate, you don't have to lose patience. Unless and until your son or your child or your daughter learns how to tie a shoelace, the satisfaction that the mother has, that look, now my son or my daughter is able to tie a shoelace, that is education. That is exactly what I try to penetrate down to my team in Eurofruit, that they have to understand what is Eurofruits. So that's why I said you educate people, don't train them.
Okay.
In fresh produce business, this is specific to fresh produce business. You are always only as good as your last pallet. You do 100 containers to a customer, 19 pallets go super well, nobody talks about it. You have one pallet with an issue, be it temperature, be it quality, or be it rotten, and they talk about it. So in fresh produce business, this is something which we have to learn. We have to accept that whatever you do good, people don't want to really acknowledge, but if there is a problem, people are going to talk about it. So be ready about it. Let us face the fact that you are always as good as your last pallet. I think this word speaks for itself: integrity, honesty, and reputation. So I don't think I want to really talk much. Everybody understands this. be a street smart and manage your gray area. I had a UK importer couple of years back, maybe about 15 years back, and we were traveling in Mumbai and going to Nasik. And typically on the traffic light, India has, as I said, a lot of poverty and a lot of people on the street. And in one of the traffic signals, we were waiting, and India is known for honking, and there's no lane discipline. And suddenly you find there were a lot of young boys, typically about 11, 12 years, the urchins on the traffic light. They come and start washing your window panes and ask for some few rupees. And whether you ignore them, whether you pay them, or you almost shoo them away, they survive, they sustain. And even if you don't pay anything, and when the car starts moving, they have a smile on their face. So they are street smart. This is exactly what I thought. We have to be in business, we have to be street smart. We have a lot of issues, but at the end of the day, we have to be street smart. Every business has its own gray areas. So we started looking at not our strengths, we started identifying what are our gray areas that Eurofruit needs to work on. And I think the day we started working on our gray areas, we understood how vulnerable we are and how we need to protect ourselves. So I think this is extremely a genuine lesson that we have learned. We have, in short, already discussed on sustainability and CSR initiatives. On CSR initiatives, apart from the English medium school that we run, I'm going to tell you an example about what happens in India, which could be very shocking for a lot of people in the West. There is a small hospital very close to our pack house in Nasik, in a very rural area. And in that rural India, even today, if a mother delivers a baby girl, the parents or the in-laws abandon the mother because she delivered a baby girl, which is so cruel, very insane. But that really hurts us, because I especially am a father of two beautiful daughters, and I feel this is injustice. This is where Eurofruit took an initiative, and whenever a child, a girl child is born, we adopt the mother and the baby, and we take care of the medical facilities and the medicines and the blankets until somebody takes her back home. So as long as she is in the hospital, all the food, medicine, blankets, everything is provided. And it will be astonishing for you that till date we have helped more than 10,000 such ladies. So that is an initiative that we are operating in Nasik. India is always very known to talk about, yes, I can do it, we can do this, we will do that, and we do this, and we all like to talk big. But and when you're not able to perform, then you give an excuse.
Sounds like Americans.
Yeah, I think most of the Indians or most of the people in the world, they do it. And then when you're not able to perform or deliver, you end up with some very genuine excuse. I wanted to do it, but then because of this you could not do it, because of that you could not do it. So we have realized that there's no point in over-promising. It's rather under-promise and over-deliver. So I think this is what keeps our customers happy, our farmers happy, and the entire team happy. We make mistakes. We all are human beings. We all tend to make mistakes. We are no special. But the biggest mistake is not to learn from your mistakes. So I think we are all human beings. In business we make mistakes. We are sometimes over-ambitious. We overcommit ourselves, and we tend to make some mistakes. But as I said, if you don't learn from your mistakes, that's the biggest mistake. So that is another lesson that we have learned. Thank you and have a great day. So please, thank you very much.
Well, that's fantastic, and certainly enough insight for a lifetime. But you're far from done.
Okay.
So,
the hard part is still coming. Okay, I thought it was over. Oh my God.
Let's talk a little bit about what the future is going to hold for Eurofruits, for the grape industry in India. Now, one thing you had mentioned, you had an interview we ran with Mira Slot on the Perishable Pundit. You mentioned that you've begun having interest outside of Europe for your products, and there's new markets and things. Why don't you talk a little bit about that interest and those as developing markets for you?
India basically produces two types of grapes, two varieties, which is white seedless and black seedless. In Europe, white seedless is very popular. We are shipping 95 or almost 98% of our grape that comes to Europe is white seedless. At the same time, we also have a domestic local variety of black seedless called Sharad. which is very good. And this was very well accepted by the local market, and the price was very high for the black seedless. So we were always wondering, why are we not able to market our black seedless grapes to Europe? We tried it and we failed it. Now, of course, there are a lot of customers still trying. But then suddenly we realized that Southeast Asia is a market where they like red grapes, they like colored grapes, and that is a market. So about 5-7 years back, I made my first trip to China. I went to Thailand. I went to Taiwan. Of course, we attend the Asia Fruit in Hong Kong every year. And I must tell you, when I went to a country like Thailand, I mean, with due respects, you get all kind of fancy thoughts as much as you get about when you talk about Amsterdam, about red light and massage and, Thailand. So you go to that country with some kind of a notion in your mind, what do you expect from Thailand? And I was proved so wrong when I went to one of the customers called Central Food Retail. It's a supermarket chain called Tops. And when I went with the buyer to those supermarkets, I was surprised to see the quality of the fresh produce that they were selling was much higher than what is sold in European supermarkets. So that is a niche market in these countries where they want extremely high quality products. That countries don't need any compliance. I mean, they don't even respect for MRL or your social initiatives or sustainability issues. All they need is good quality product. And the difference between, as I said, Asia and Europe is always that Asians like to taste the fruit by the tongue. European buyers buy it by the eye. But they like sweet grapes, and that is where we realized that this is a growing market. And in the last 5 years, I think we have made a good progress. And now we have structured programs from this market, and that market is really growing.
Why don't you grow red grapes in India very much?
I think the Indian weather conditions are not sustainable for producing red grapes. We have tried varieties like Crimson, but the problem is to get the uniform red color. So you have one bunch with nice red color, and then next to that you have a white and red, and so coloration on white red grapes are very difficult. And then to use ethofone or some kind of product to bring a nice coloration would have a restriction anyway on the MRL, so you can't do it. So black seedless is something which we are able to do it very successfully. And as we say, the black seedless grape that in India, the color is black. It's not a Coca-Cola color. So it's not red or black, or it's really nice dark black color grapes.
Well, one of the issues all over the world, the hottest part of grape marketing is the marketing of new genetics, sometimes under accepted global branding and things of this sort. I was surprised because I was talking to one of the breeders, and they use licensees in major grape growing countries in Peru, in Chile, in Brazil, in Egypt, in Israel, in Spain, in Italy, in Portugal, the United States. But it seemed odd to me that India was sort of missing from this mix. So I turned to them and I said, do you know Nitin? Do you know my friend? Oh, yes, we know him well. We love him. I said, well, why don't you have an arrangement with him? And they said to me that the intellectual property laws in India might not allow them to protect their varieties, so they're hesitant to allow, in fact, had decided not to allow these. Is this a problem for you, or is this something that can change? What's the situation?
This is indeed the biggest challenge that we are facing now, and unless and until something is done on this, maybe we will not exist 5 years from now, because everybody is looking for new varieties. I mean, you have variety experts like Moika, I can see here Josephina here. The varieties that I see at Sunworld or with Moika, I simply get amazed. Now the reason is, the question is, why is India not able to get these licensed varieties? Point, India has a land ceiling act, which means an individual cannot have 100 hectares of land, agricultural land, because government of India wants to protect small farmers. There are millions and millions of small farmers, and they are actually the vote bank for the government. So government will never do anything that would keep the farmers unhappy. They have their own motives behind it. So that is one of the reasons why international companies like say Sunworld or any breeder, or we had been talking to SNFL, that they said they are feared, they're scared. I mean, how do you protect the varieties in India? Because if somebody imports, it will be very easily multiplied and they wouldn't get a license. Now, we are going back to the government and telling them, look, this is a serious problem. Unfortunately, if you look at the size of the country and the grape production, if you're talking about, only about 5% of the product that is produced in India on the grapes is exported. So the government doesn't really pay so much attention to it because 95% is still consumed in India. If the situation would have been the other way around, that we were export dependent like a country like Chile or from South Africa, that they need to export to sustain, then the government would intervene. Unfortunately, our government still feels that 90% of the grapes grown are consumed in India, so why do we pay such kind of heavy license fee? But we are still talking to the ministry, we are having a lot of discussions, and I keep my fingers crossed that in next maybe 2 or 3 years, we will see some change. We are also talking to some breeders on paying one-time royalty, because that is what will make it possible to happen. So when they give a new variety, we would pay them one-time royalty. So these are the things that we are working on.
You've mentioned to me your relationship with a gentleman, Dr. Alan Legge from the UK. Why don't you talk a moment about the role he played in getting you started and in beginning to build this industry with you?
If I start talking, we are going to be late for dinner, okay? Because this is a very interesting experience that I had with Dr. Alan Legge from Mac Multiples. And I was actually studying on my wine project in Russia. And I never imagined that grape export would be my career. And when I went to London to an Indian embassy, I was shown a fax from an English company who was interested in buying grapes. I definitely did not show any interest. I said, grape export is not the kind of business I want to be in. But I came back to India, this was about 26 years back, and I saw the fax and I replied just for the fun of it. And I get a response immediately from this company in England. I said, yes, we know your company and we want to do business with you. We want to start importing grapes from you. And I was a little bit surprised because we were not known internationally. And it so happened that when I was in Russia with the Indian government and Russian government, we were talking about a joint venture, and that article had appeared in a local newspaper in London. And I just replied, okay, yeah, this, that. I also tried to make, never took it seriously. And then I get a fax from Dr. Alan Legge, and he asked me 16 questions, 16 very basic questions today on grapes. For example, the berry size, the variety, sugar level, sugar acid, and DDT, or you use chemicals and pesticides. And the first question he asked me was, what is the berry size? So he said 18 millimeters. I went back and I bought some grapes from the market and I measured the size and I was so excited. I told him, we have 26 millimeter grapes. He said, wow, that's amazing. You have that big grapes. He was talking about diameter, I was talking about the length. So when I started looking at the diameter, it was only about 10 or 12 millimeters. So you can imagine the kind of knowledge that we had about grape was absolutely poor. We had no idea about it. But we had an horticulturist who replied to his fax, and one fine day, Alan Legge sends me a fax again that, Nitin, I'm coming to Mumbai. Those days it was still Bombay. I said, Nitin, I'm coming to Bombay. I said, okay, now is the biggest challenge. I picked him up from London to Mumbai flight, and I take him to Leela Kempinski, which is a beautiful 5-star near the airport. He talks about what variety, Thompson seedless and white seedless, and I talk about this is paneer and this is beautiful Indian food and there's a beautiful Indian girl there. I'm talking about everything else but grapes because I know nothing about grapes. And okay, he was a bit little surprised. He thought maybe after I go to the office, we'll start conversation. He comes to my office, he gives me an introduction about his company called Mac Multiples, with a wonderful brochure with a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. And that is the time I tell Alan, I need to confess something. He said, yes. I said, look, I know nothing about fresh produce. I don't know anything about grapes. We are a logistics company, we are an oil company, and it's just a matter of coincidence. I said, Nitin, what have you done to me? I said, okay, sorry, Alan. He said, okay, Nitin, let's go to Nasik. Okay, that was the time I went to a grape vineyard for the first time in my life with Alan. So I never knew what a grape vineyard looks like. And with some contacts and some friends, we went to a grape vineyard, we made a small tour, and after that he left. I don't even know when he went back to London. Several weeks passed, and one fine afternoon, I get a call from Mac Multiple's commercial department, Simon Alfrey, and he calls me and said, Nitin, congratulations, you have been appointed as our exclusive supplier of grapes from India. I said, you must be drunk, these guys are crazy, I mean, what make you do this? And I spoke to Alan, and he had 3 valid reasons that changed my life. He said, first, you try to almost fool me or cheat me or misguide me, so you'll have the guilt feeling. Second thing, he told me that you are in the logistics business, which was our family business. We were running oil tankers for 4,000 kilometers from east to west, which was a specialized job. So he said, handling good logistics is very important in fresh produce business. And the third thing, most importantly, he said that you know nothing about grapes, so you'll never argue with me. I will tell you to do this, you have to do it. And these are the 3 things. In my response to Alan, I said, Alan, if you have nominated me as your student, be my teacher, and I will promise you that I'll be your best student in the world. And that is how the relationship started. Alan taught me ABC of this business. He came, he spent a lot of time in India with us. After the first few containers, I and my wife, we went to Paddockwood in UK. We worked in a cold store for 6 months like a labor just to understand the fresh produce business. And after that, I went to UC Davis in California to study my post-harvest biology, and then we took it so seriously, and as I promised Alan that we tried to be his best student. He retired about 7-8 years back from active business, and about 5 years back, one fine day I decided that I need to acknowledge Alan, though he was not in business anymore. And I sent a message to Alan that, Alan, I would like to invite you to Mumbai, and I'll pay for your air ticket. And, okay. So I'll pay for your ticket and you please come. And he said, why do you want me to come to India? I said, we want to just acknowledge your whatever you have done for us. And Alan was kind enough to accept my invitation. And that is the message I also gave to my friend, my partner, Eric, that I'm planning to invite Alan to Mumbai. And Eric was, Nitin, can I please come? I also want to come and see who's this Alan. I said, of course. And Eric came with his colleague called Mark. And Eric and Mark also came to India. And we took Alan to the pack house where we started from 20 years back. And he was absolutely shocked. He was surprised. We felicitated Alan. We gave him the highest honor and respect. And that's the national anthem? No, I don't know. Anyway, so that's the story about whatever I've learned today, or whatever we have achieved at Eurofruit. It is all because of Dr. Alan. So he's my guru, he's my teacher, he's my everything.
Well, you know, it's interesting because when we had occasion to invite him to come here, and I mentioned this in the article, it struck me because I get so many letters about things like this, but his was a little different. Due to illness, he was not able to join us, say his health.
I did speak to him.
But he sent a note, and what he said in the note was really interesting because he didn't say, I'm really proud of helping to build this company because their grape quality is the highest grape quality in the world, or their technology is fantastic, or this, that, or the other thing. He said that an underappreciated cause of your success has been the ethical basis on which the company was founded. What do you think he meant by that? If he was here, what would he tell us?
I think this is something which possibly we inherited from my parents, from my father. And he always said that when you sleep in the night, middle of the night, if your doorbell rings, be sure that there are 3 people who are not knocking on your doors. One is the police. I mean, if you have not done anything wrong, you should not be scared of the police. The taxman, you need to pay your taxes so that there's nobody knocking on your door. And third is respect your suppliers. There should be no supplier knocking at your door for his outstanding payment. If you have a payment terms of say 30 days, try to make it 28 days. So try to be very legitimate businessman. And these are the kind of legacy that we carry forward from my father. And these were the ethics which Alan had also seen, because my dad was very active those days. He's still alive, but he's retired from the business. So these are the lessons that he has heard my dad telling me, and we implementing it. So I think he understands the values of the business.
it's interesting because now, of course, social responsibility, every company in the industry has a report, has an audit. You basically can't do business with many retailers unless you do something. But 25 years ago, that was not so common to be thinking in those terms, and we wouldn't necessarily think that a company trying to get a start in India was going to be focused on these types of issues.
I agree. Today we are talking about certifications. I personally feel it's not the certification that matters. Certification is just a piece of paper. It has to come from your heart, and if you're genuinely doing it for your company, I think this is also seen by a lot of supermarkets. A lot of supermarkets really don't insist on certification. They insist on the process. They want to make sure that you're implementing it. And if that process is visible, and it cannot be a show off, it has to really be seen over a period of time. And once that is seen, I think you have achieved it.
Well, I think what you're pointing out is the difference between pursuing goals sincerely and pursuing things so you can stamp the card.
Absolutely.
To make things happen. One of the problems we have in America right now in the supermarket business is produce used to be ran by people who were passionate about produce and had their whole careers dedicated to it. If you were a vice president of produce of a regional supermarket chain in America and you were going to go to a different job, if it wasn't going to be another supermarket chain, it was very likely going to be in the supply chain for produce. So the connection was very clear. Today, big chains like Walmart and so forth, it's very helpful. It's an important part of their business for you to have perishables experience, just like some companies will insist you have foreign experience or something. But most of the people have no particular passion or interest in it. They're doing their 3 years so they can stamp that
just
card.
To have the experience.
And now they can go on to run the lawnmower distribution business and get paid a little bit more. One of the challenges for the produce industry has been to be able to reach down and to find ways in our world to have a very to sustain the passion that will motivate genuine industry improvement. One of the people, we did another interview for this show with a company, a trader here in the Netherlands, that's celebrating their 40th anniversary.
Okay.
And it was the father and son, and it's interesting, the father said something that he didn't feel the business was as fun as it used to be. He felt oppressed by the retailers, actually, who had tremendous demands and weren't going to let them make very much money and things of this sort. But you seem joyous about your business. You don't seem very oppressed. How do you feel about this world?
I exactly feel it the way. I love this business. I have a great passion for this business. And if you don't have a passion and if you don't love what you're doing you will never be successful. So it has to come from your heart. I also want to share one small thing that we do differently in Eurofruits. About 7-8 years back, like a typical company, you have various designations with your team members. You have a manager, you have a general manager, you have an assistant manager. And I suddenly felt that was not the right thing to do. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
And we realized that we need to bring a change. And one fine day I had an annual meeting, which we have every year on 15th of June. And I called everybody and I said, from today onward, there will be no designation in Eurofruits. There will be no senior, no manager. Everybody will be called a Euro star because everybody is a performer. Maybe somebody is performing less, somebody shining more. And we change the designation now. Everybody in Eurofruit who works, we call them a Euro star. So we give them the status of a star because without them, we cannot sustain. I mean, whatever we are today is because of our team. And I really want to even acknowledge on this forum that Eurofruit is lucky to have a wonderful, dedicated team. And we are like one big expanded family.
Well, I think that we've been very fortunate to have such a star of the Indian industry and the grape industry here with us today. Nitin had said I caused him to be teased a bit because I wrote a column and I referred to him as the George Washington of the Indian grape export industry, and he told me he now has a new nickname all across the world. So,
thank you,
George. Thank you for coming, and we appreciate very much you being here with us today.
Jim, I know it's time, but if I can just take 2 more minutes, and I want to tell you that this is my first time in Amsterdam Produce Show, and I have been attending a lot of Produce Show around the world. I really feel that the location of the show and the timing of the show is fantastic, and I can clearly see the difference between most of the big exhibitions and shows that I see. That this is more compact, this is more one-to-one, this is more like a boutique kind of a show. I loved it, and I'm sure whoever has attended the show today are going to come back next year. Not only that they will come back, but with them they'll bring another 5 or 10 or 15 of their friends, and so this hall is going to be smaller, Jim. So start looking for a new venue, and we want to really thank you.